20s, you're like, oh, these guys don't
First
know
of
what
all,
they're
thank
talking
you
about.
for tuning in, youngsters, and tell your
Fantastic.
friends.
You're going to get to 40 and you're going to go, I was so dumb. Or if you're one of the lucky ones out there, like, you know what? I had my stuff together. Screw this guy. I didn't. I absolutely did not. I've had literally 3 different careers and I'm 40. Like, it's just, you just don't know what you are, who you are. And so when you get those rare occurrences of young players that have that stuff together, it stands out because it's so uncommon. Even when you're talking about high level, high end prospects, Shaden has got an otherworldly talent, and you see him, but then you also see him get a switch on the 10th man on the Washington Wizards, and he settles for a 28-footer, and you want to tear your hair out by the roots because you're like, sir, in a world of the most athletic humans on the planet, you're in the 0.1% of the most athletic humans. And you're settling for a 28-footer instead of blowing past him and ripping down. Justin Champagnie is looking at that man like going, please do not send me to the nether realm yet again.
Well, I think that is an enormous factor. Like, this is such a simple binary way to put it. But if part of the summer and next season, maybe not even over the summer, but part of next season is, I'll just use the term of unlocking Shaden Sharp, where it all sort of comes together and that big leap is made. That in itself would be enormous. Because this season, it was interesting, Dan, sort of looking at a more larger picture. When you look at the 5 core guys, the really, really young guys on this team, Scoot, 2, Denny, DC, and Shea.
Sure.
Right? When you have those guys, it feels like the other 4 have made a big leap this season. And it feels like Shea, I won't say he regressed. I don't think that's the case.
No.
But it feels more flat than I think we thought it was going to be.
The curve is not as steep, but a big part of that is, number one, he loses most of last year to the injury.
No question.
And that core injury is the same one Dame had, the same one GP2 had. And talking to Dame when he came back from that, like, the things he told me I can't say on this because we'll get fined, but it's a tough injury to come back from. It takes so much out of you. Nasir Little also dealt with the same thing. Like, it is an injury, like, in the core of your body that you just can't do anything.
Sure.
And like the way you have to come back from that, it takes a lot of work and a lot of trust. And I think you saw some of that. But also I think Shaden, again, I wrote about it, I want to say about a month ago, 6 weeks ago, maybe longer. But in leading up to like him kind of starting to figure some stuff out, I asked him, do you think that the time that you lost, COVID, not playing at Kentucky, the injury last year, how much did that set you back? Do you think it set you back? And he was like, yeah, it did. He's like, there was times I just couldn't do anything. All I could do is watch some film or, not work with guys. And in my, the year that I didn't play at Kentucky, I worked with my trainer and we worked hard, but like that's just working on air is just different than like real action. And so the flip side of it is you see Shaden tonight, 16 points, 5 boards, 2 assists, 2 steals, and it leaves you wanting because there was probably 8, 9 different plays tonight where I just sat there and went, what are you doing? And it's not because I don't think he's good enough. It's the exact opposite. It's, brother, there's nobody on the floor right now that should be able to stop you.
All the tools are in the toolbox.
And you see him settle, and it's just like, I think you saw the switch flip in the game tonight. I thought he settled a lot early in the game, which was a little weird because he had the early putback. And I'm like, usually when you see him get involved on the offensive glass and find those spots,
it's a good indicator.
It's like, okay, he's got the juice tonight. And then I thought he kind of. Now, part of that is you're playing the Wizards, and look, everyone's like, oh, you're a pro, you should do this. That team is god awful, and I can imagine everybody looking at that.
It was a husk of a basketball team.
It was.
Can we do the digression now about the unethical? Okay, so Chris Middleton and Jordan Poole started this basketball game and then did not play.
You'd be surprised
if
they did because they did not play because Chris Middleton honestly started out really strong for the Wizards. 2 of 3, went to the mid-post. I was like, oh, there's Chris Middleton.
Absolutely.
Jordan Poole surprisingly did play, even though they both subbed out at the same time. They both played 10-31. I looked down and I was like, he hit 2 threes? Really? Like it was like it was just over in kind of a blink, and then they didn't come back the rest of the game. And the Wizards had a little bit of a lead where they get out to 8 early on, but they're not good enough to where they need to worry about that ever.
No, I mean Portland ended the first quarter on a 16-1 run. I think they ended the second quarter on a similar run, and that was enough for Washington. They pulled the ripcord at that point. We said the same thing from Toronto last night.
Now,
like,
Denver did, or the Wizards did beat the Nuggets the other night, so
Yes.
I shouldn't say ever, but
And the Wizards have been not good, not okay,
Frisky.
but better frisky.
Frisky.
Yeah, a little scrappy, perhaps. But we saw the same thing last night, and like, I guess my question is overall, Dan, is there like a set criteria for when the league gets involved in, we'll say, tanking shenanigans? Or is it, you know it when you see it, and it has to be so egregious that what we saw the last 2 nights as Blazer fans doesn't even qualify?
There's no line. It's
not this is
black.
written.
Yeah, and that's what they're doing. They're manipulating that, and I'm not a fan of it. We talked about this last night. I think it's gross. Say it with your chest, in the sense of, if you're gonna play the guy, play the guy. If you're not, sit him down and take the fine.
Sure.
Like, if you're gonna get nasty with it, get nasty with it. Like, I don't. Look, everybody's like, "Oh, you're just saying that because the Blazers." I'm like, "No, the Blazers, they got nasty with it," and I'm sure they're probably on like triple secret probation. Like, the league's like, "Hey, the one time they did," and I think that the basketball gods took it away from them, was when they had John Butler Jr. playing point guard against the Spurs, and that win or loss, the Blazers didn't lose, but didn't win the Wembanyama lottery by one lottery ball. Who's to say if the Blazers win that game, do they, reverse
Fortunes flip?
And it's like, I feel like you're messing with the game. Like, I don't like, look, if you want to sit Chris Middleton, he's old and broken, he's had a history of injuries, I'm cool with that. Like, I get it. Jordan Poole, not a guy who misses injuries, with the exception of his teammate breaking his face.
Draymond.
Sitting Alex Sarr, your number 20 or number 2 overall pick in the draft, is nasty, nasty, nasty work.
Well, and that was the most disappointing part about it, because
he's playing well.
Sarr started to get going in the third quarter, and I'm like, all right, this is going to be an entertaining second half. And as soon as they pulled him out, like,
it
yes,
got gross.
It's fun for the Blazers to win, but like, this is a very ugly version of basketball that we saw in the second half there. And in a season where there's been so much narratives about what's wrong with the league, like, tanking is not a new thing, but this is not a great look.
You aren't tuning into this, man.
If you are a Blazers fan and the Toronto game or the game tonight was the only game you went to all season, you got to be bummed out, because you saw the worst of what the opponent brought to town. Like, you should have seen Alex
Winning
Sarr.
didn't matter.
You should have seen Sarr and Klingon battle it out in the second half.
And they had some good possessions
that's the
back
point,
and
man.
forth,
That was a fun battle that they had going, and they couldn't
Two
extend
very
it.
different, unique players. You're looking at the number 2 overall pick, the number 7 overall pick. They're both bigs. They play the game entirely different.
And that's what that would have been the interesting dance to see. Donovan being pulled out, Sarr being pulled in, like the pull and pull. Donovan stretching out. We were talking about it, watching that. What a nice job Donovan was doing, covering more ground, not just sinking back in the paint, chasing down offensive rebounds. And
being a little more comfortable in space.
that was a product of Sarr being in the game and an interesting type of player. And it's like, that's the development you want to see, is Donovan and these young guys being challenged by different types of opportunities that the opponent presents. And it's very disappointing to see a team pull the ripcord in such a gross fashion. Congrats to Washington. You now are tied once again for the worst record.
And that's the thing, is
in
like,
the NBA.
Come on, man. Like, what are we doing here? You're awful. And Alex Sarr played 7 minutes and 43 seconds in the third quarter. That was it. And in those 7:43, you saw him go 4 for 8, 2 of 4 from 3, grab 3 rebounds, grab a steal, and block a shot. Like, you saw all of this stuff. Why would you not want that? He's a figure of, like, he is the guy right now. When you're talking about assets on the team, Bub Carrington, he's a couple years away. Like, you could see some of the passing and the shooting is rough. But Sarr is like a part of what you
saw it tonight if you watched the game.
And he's been doing
He's got
this.
some juice.
I mean, he's the reason they beat the Nuggets.
Yeah, 30-something, 35?
Yeah. If you're sitting there as the Wizards, ride the heater.
Give
And
your
look,
fans something to be excited about.
not just that, but like, he's hot right now.
Sure.
You have nothing else. You have nothing. Look, I'm a big proponent of not all minutes are good minutes. Holy. I absolutely believe that. So leave Jordan Poole out there to give you some functionality. Leave Marcus Smart out there. I mean, he wasn't active tonight. And leave a veteran out there to give you a little bit of stability, to figure some stuff out. So the guy that means this much to your franchise going forward has some functionality, and you can kind of see him close. Like, last year, Scoot had a couple of games where people were like, see, he's figuring it out. I was like, those are little Marchy games. We'll chill on that. But it was still like there was something there, like a little string you could pull on. Like, and if you're in an organization that's just, I mean, that Wizards team is hopeless. That is just a pit of despair.
It's ugly, and it's been that way for a while.
Yeah, and look, they did the right thing in just stripping this thing down to the brass tacks and then building up from there and getting a new coach, getting a new front office, and just ripping off everything, just tearing off the Band-Aid. Like, getting out of Bradley Beal's contract. Bravo.
Suns are trying. I have a quick trivia question for you because we were talking about it. Okay, what year did Washington change their name to the Wizards?
97.
That's why he's Danny Marang.
97?
And you're not. Yeah. Congratulations. You win nothing. Guess what? Winter is still here.
No, it's still here.
The spring equinox is close, but right now...
It was hailing today.
A lot. So it's winter.
There you go. That's your weather update.
Folks, it's time to check out the new 2025 Subaru models. They're rolling in every day over at Dick Hanna Subaru. Subaru delivers that lifetime powertrain warranty on every new car. Experience nice in the car business over at Dick Hanna Subaru. Believe in nice. Visit them today and see why a Subaru is perfect for the season and your next big assist. Okay, it's time. We're going to reveal number 14 on the top 25 Blazers of the 20th century. We are working on a graphic that's going to show the previous people that have been named. I've been told this is a good idea, so we're going to run with that. Not tonight, though.
No.
Last night we had, who was last night?
Andre
Miller was last night. Very good. Tonight,
I'd say never forget, but...
Damon Stoudamire. Yeah, Yusuf was last night, too. But it's Damon Stoudamire tonight, number 14. He was a Blazer for a long time. Local guy. He won the Rookie of the Year in Toronto. Came over here.
One of the more interesting, early career trades of that era. Like, I think when you think about that time period, you also think about a guy like Chauncey Billups, who was, a number 3 overall pick.
Mired in Boston and then
just gets moved around quick early on. I mean, Damon was a high school legend and a college legend and part of that early Raptors, expansion exercise, as it were. But, he, despite his size, was, a big part of that Blazers era that was so productive. Unfortunately, he was also a part of a Blazers era that was quite destructive in the sense of the social capital. And, look, I love Damon and what he's been as a coach and as a dude. I've talked to him a couple of times. We had him on our old show.
That's right. He was at Pacific then, now Georgia Tech.
Yeah, and doing a great job down there. But, unfortunately, he had the Spinal Tap moment of going through the metal detector with the marijuana wrapped in weed, or the marijuana wrapped in foil. That's that weed. I swear, I'm sober.
You got it.
But,
you got it.
I
do wonder, Danny, and I doubt we've ever talked about this on television before, but like what that era would have looked like today. You know what I mean? Just with what that stigma was around it. I'm not saying I'm not saying it was all that.
No, but I mean,
but given the light of 2025 on what we thought about.
I mean, number one,
20-ish years ago.
Number one, the NBA doesn't test for weed anymore.
Right.
Look, a significant portion of the NBA smokes. It is what it is, and there's a lot of states where it's legal, and like I don't care. And even then, I was like,
I just think attitudes towards it in general. Well, like I think if people watching out there, even if they don't do it, they're probably like, I don't care.
Yeah.
And people cared a lot back then. I mean, and that is a part of the story with Damon, which is unfortunate because you see how long he was here for Portland and how much
among the players around this region in this bracket. Like,
absolutely, dude.
It's one of the longer ones.
Yes, I mean to have that
and the team
chunk
success
of time,
in that period was
no question
the best.
And he was part of one of my favorite little moments in Blazers history. We're going to talk about
crippling moments.
No. Was that 0-3 first-round series where the Blazers were kind of lifeless walking into it as the 6th seed. They lose the first 3 against Dallas. They win the next 3 against Dallas, go into the 4th quarter of a Game 7 with a lead, with the opportunity to be the first team ever to come back from a 3-0 deficit in a series. And we're like, is everything turned? Did they just figure it out? What's going on here? And they lose the Game 7, and that kind of, all right, well, I guess we don't have it, and then it snowballs from there the other way.
It snowballs into the next 2 years.
Correct. Yes.
But no, look, I love Damon as a player.
Absolutely,
I love Damon as a dude. the list gets really interesting from basic on out about where kind of guys where we end up. The committee ended up on these, but like the cool thing for me about Damon is he's truly a local guy, like through and through local guy, and it's. Oregon hasn't produced a lot of hoopers. You know what I mean? It's a short list when you're talking, especially good players.
Well, he went to high school down the road.
Yeah, I mean,
PIL kid.
You've got more recently, obviously Peyton Pritchard.
Sure.
Between him and Kevin Love, you're talking about the Singlers. It's weird. There's a commonality between those guys that I can't put my finger on.
Can't quite figure it out.
Can't. It's
difficult.
Just something. It's awful white about it. I don't know what it is. But I mean, outside of that, it's Damon. It's Fred Jones. I mean, it's not this like storied group of players.
Sure.
And so when they have one of their own, it's cool. You know, it's there's something about being a guy on your home team, particularly in like a small market. Like there's just something about that you just don't see. Like Brandon had quasi opportunity being a Northwest guy, but it's different, right?
It's romantic and unusual, and you see it a lot in a place like New York.
Yeah,
or maybe sometimes in LA. Exactly.
Like, I mean, the list of LA Hoopers have gone home. Kawhi and Paul George both kind of going back, and James Harden. I mean, the list, they're all on the same team,
right?
So it's not hard to find those guys. Norm Powell going back. It's the guys going back home to big cities is pretty common, but like. Is Oklahoma, like, is Trae Young going to ever end up playing for the Thunder and playing for, the home state team? It's like, probably not. Like, how often are the Spurs going to have a local guy? I mean, LaMarcus is from Dallas. Like, that's part of the reason why he wanted to go home was family and stuff like that. But, like...
Kind of, but, I mean, Damon Stoudamire went to high school within 6 miles of where he played NBA basketball. Like... That's a much different thing.
Yeah, it's again in a smaller market. It's pretty cool, man. So no, it's just his time here is very unique and interesting because of how high the highs were and how low. Like, have you seen the clips of him and Sheed talking about when they got pulled over in the Hummer?
A little bit, yeah.
And the team bus drives by slowly, like.
Oh no!
Shaking their heads.
Look
like,
what you've done.
Oh God! And she talking about that is like, yeah, that was probably the worst time for the bus to drive by because we all knew. And it's like, yeah. Actually, remember we had Sheed on the show and he talked about it.
That was an all timer.
That was still at the top of my Twitter profile.
Yeah,
like it's.
God love him. Yeah. Sheed's on the list. We're going to talk about him in the coming days. Like I said, the
list gets real interesting here, real quick.
From legends past to current legends, Dwap Reith. Got it together from 3. It sounds silly to say I'm nervous about Dwap Reith and how he's playing, but he is getting some serious run recently.
Yeah.
And like Chauncey said, the defensive side of the ball has been
doing
there,
all the other stuff.
which is why he's remained on the floor, even if the three-point shooting isn't there, which is his calling card and kind of the reason you have seen him interjected at times. But now you need him for a little bit longer period, especially with Jabari unavailable tonight.
Real quickly, Jabari was in the building tonight.
Okay.
I can't remember if he went out on the sideline or not. I talked to him, I asked him how he was doing. He's like, yeah, I'm better.
Good.
He's like, I had to stay home because, he got his bell rung when he took that elbow from Cat. He's like, yeah, it's like, that's the worst one I've had, speaking of concussions. But I also talked to Watt pregame, and I mentioned that was probably the highest I've ever seen you jump on that block last game, Wap. And he smiled. He's like, I appreciate you. I appreciate you noticing. Wap, if you ever get a chance to talk to him, is one of the kindest human beings. Like, if you don't know his story, Matisse Steibel directed and produced the interview that he did with Wap and his path from South Sudan to Australia and like the many paths that he took before coming to the NBA. That dude is incredible. I love seeing him being successful, but he's been doing all the little things, and he's older. I think people forget that Wap's 28 or 29. He's kind of an elder statesman in a sense, even though he's been in the league for such a short period. But yeah, you put him out there to give you a different look because he's going to spread the floor and he's going to get threes up. And if he's making threes, you do all of a sudden have to be like, oh man, if you're big, you're going to be like, I got to get out there. And then it kind of changes the geometry of the floor. And you can see that tonight. There's just more room to work with when Wap starts hitting threes.
There is. I had cause for concern, as I alluded to earlier, because he missed his first couple of threes. And then he deferred a few times.
Yeah.
Where it's like, that's You're in there to take that shot.
Well,
and then he drove a little bit and didn't really have it. And then he had one that was so wide open. He had to take it, and it ripped the net. And I'm like, okay, that's a relief. And then it kind of went from there. And I think he had a season high. I think 15 was a season high.
That sounds about right.
Yeah.
There's a cool little moment. Not a really moment, but it was just kind of cool. You had 3 straight threes from Australians. Wap hit a 3. Tease hit his first basket of the season, made 3, and then Wap another one. So you had 3 straight threes from the 2 Aussies. It's just, those guys have a pretty cool bond playing for the Australian national team and going through all that stuff together. I think it's probably a good time to talk about Matisse.
Can we?
I mean, he's 7 steals and 2 blocks in 28 minutes through 2 games. I mean,
and he was close to a bunch of others as well.
You could
a lot of deflections, a lot of poking in there.
He had those young Wizards players in a particular kind of hell. Like you could just see the ball getting lost, and you're just sitting there going, "Oh, I feel bad for those guys," because Tease is such a unique and different player, and it's not sit down in front of you and defend. He had a steal where he might have well been Darrell Revis. He baited Carrington, and it's like, I'm going to let him go and make him think, but I'm literally springing a trap for him.
There's a couple that he just catches.
Mm-hmm. Because he knows.
He beats him to the spot.
Yeah, no, he knows where, Matisse is such an insane athlete, and I don't think we talk about him because he doesn't show, Shaden Sharp level athleticism.
Right.
Did you see his dunk? Tease is an insane athlete. He might have some of the best acceleration without the ball in the NBA, full stop. His ability to go from standing still to full speed, it reminds me of a corner. The ability to jump a route, and that's why he's able to make these plays or close 30 feet for a game-saving block. And it's just, he does stuff, again, like Shaden Sharp, where he does stuff in a league that's littered with the best athletes on the planet. Tease does stuff nobody else can do.
Well, and I'm so glad that we got the pregame interview with Brooke of Matisse Thybulle, because it is such a fun reminder of the unique personality that he has.
Yes.
And when you hear him speak, cerebral is such an overused word, but it is correct with him. He just thinks about things in a unique way.
Oh, he sees the world through a totally different lens than 99% of the world.
And that helps him as a basketball player. There's absolutely no way it doesn't contribute to the way he plays basketball.
He's a defensive artist.
He thinks about the game differently than other people do.
He just sees, you talk about the ones and zeros, the gif of
seeing the Matrix.
Yeah, you're just kind of he's outside it. He's not in the same world that everybody else is. And selfishly, one of the things that I've hated about Matisse being out is that I just don't get the chance to talk to him, because when you're doing your rehab stuff, you're just not around the team as much. And one of my favorite things over the last couple of years has been, pre and post game with him and Jeremy Grant. They're both very good friends, and the stuff that would get talked about in that locker room between those two guys, because they're on their lockers face each other, was always something insane. It did not matter. It was on the table for discussion.
It wasn't just did you see White Lotus last night?
No, it was always something crazy. And it was, you just kind of find yourself sitting there and you're like, wait, what did you say? And you just want to get in the conversation. It just kind of lends itself to just how different he is. And not even interviewing him, just talking to him. I would ask him a question about this, that, or the other. I'd say 8 out of 10 times, if I asked him a question, he would respond with a question. Well, what do you mean by this? Or what do you, are we trying to say something like this? He always asks something clarifying because he wants to give you a precise answer. And it's the same thing that you see kind of on the basketball court. When you see him get a steal, it's not that he's, just poking at the ball. It's he's asking a question of okay, what are you trying to do here? And you can see his brain process 4 steps ahead, and then you see him just pull the ball out like he knew it was going to be.
Yeah, there's a reading of body language that you can see about anticipating where people are going to be, and it's a really interesting way to watch someone play basketball, especially because it's on the defensive end, Dan, when we're so used to the lion's share of attention being to offensive players, and it's just another player who the focus of their game is defense, and it's exactly what Chauncey wants to see out of the guys, and it's more shoring up that identity. The Blazers are going to go into the offseason. Look, they're going to have 30-ish wins. They're going to have an identity going into the offseason, regardless of who's the coach next year, regardless of kind of what the entirety makeup of the roster is, Portland fans are going to know what type of basketball team they have.
And if they go into next season and they don't have that, you're going to have a lot of fans that are pretty frustrated.
Absolutely, because a brand and an ethos has been built.
Yep.
And throughout the course of the first few months of the season, it's like, what is this identity? Not only does it not look cohesive, but we don't know what they are. If they don't have Jeremy and Ant, they can't score. And now we're in this position of, my goodness, we have all these young guys and all this talent. And hey, we won more games than we thought we were going to. We're probably going to get a pretty decent first-round pick still. Like, again, I would encourage fans to sort of be excited about the entirety of it all. It's not just that you're probably going to land a pretty decent first-round pick, and we'll show the doldrums here in a few minutes regarding that topic, but chances are you're going to get a reasonable first-round pick, and you're going to win more games and develop a little bit more in perhaps a different way than you thought you were going to heading into this campaign.
Yeah, no, and again, I think it's the kind of thing that leads into the viability of the play-in, because the offensive teams in general, you've got a lot of volatility. The hallmarks of good teams and teams that are ascending, it's on the other side.
Yeah.
Because the NBA is so much about offense now, everybody can score. Well, unless you're the Wizards. But if you've got a defensive identity, and very rarely will you see a team that is in the top 12 defensively be a bad team. Because if your defensive level, effort, intensity, focus, IQ, everything is where it needs to be on that end, it's going to lead to the other end being a lot easier.
It's less of a variable.
Yes.
Defense is more replicable
It's something
than
you
offense
can control
is.
for.
That's right. Can we get the Blazer box up right now? Now, I caution all of you,
Dun, 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 dun.
don't be too freaked out. So what this is showing is, if you're new to it, this is Tankathon. It's wonderful for tracking your chances of getting the first pick in the draft. Portland has the 11th best chance right now. They're at 2% chance of getting the number 1 overall pick, less than 10% of getting top 4. It is a razor-thin margin. There is 1/2 game that separates Portland from a 9% chance of getting a top 4 pick to a 26% chance.
Hey, that team that's at number 9, I can't quite read that, Joe. Who is that?
That's the Heat of Miami. You'll see
Oh.
in bright green, happy St. Patrick's Day, everybody, that they've lost 8 games in a row. And the reason it's in green in Tankathon, because you want to lose on the Tankathon
Because if you look at
website.
Utah right there, that bright green is lost 10.
We will go through the schedule a little bit later in the show, and I'm going to make you do wins and losses.
No, that's all right.
There's only 13 left.
Look, I'm not against it, and I know it doesn't make for great TV or radio, but I don't make for great TV or radio, so that's okay.
That's not true, Dan Marang. The point that I'm trying to make is the schedule gets quite hard. So,
Yeah, it flips on its head.
This is, the next 4 are Memphis, Denver, Boston, and Cleveland. If you win one of those games, you're going to be very, very happy. So, this is probably, if we're being the most pragmatic, if you had $1,000 to put down and say, this is what I think the scenario is going to be over the next several days, Portland is probably going to lose 3 of these games, if not 4, because the competition is so good, and that's what's happened so far.
Yeah.
Portland beats the bad teams. They play the good teams tough.
Look, you're not losing to that Wizards team tonight.
You're not losing to that Wizards team
That's
tonight.
not happening.
So your chances are probably going to get better than this, and you're probably going to win a few more games. You finish with 33-ish wins. You have a chance for a top 8, top 4 pick, Dan. Yeah. It's pretty good, man.
Look,
it's pretty good.
If they can land at 8, to me, it's the optimal goal.
That's the winner.
And we talked about this off air the last couple of days. I was like, there is just no chance that they're losing to Toronto or Washington.
No.
They were going. We knew they were going to pull out all the stops. I figured they were just going to flat out rest guys, and just be like, oh my God,
Washington.
Yeah,
Instead of going through the rigmarole, Middleton and Poole, and
I was like, what are we doing here, man?
Yeah,
and it's like, please don't fine us. Please don't give us a $100,000 fine. But I am of the mindset that, look, here's the flip side of this. I guess I'm going to play both sides to an extent.
Let's do it.
They're only, 4 games out of the play-in now?
Oh, you wish, Marang. They're 3 games out of the 10 seed right now. Let's pull up the Blazer box.
4 games is difficult.
There they are.
3 is...
There they are.
Possible. It's possible.
Especially given the Mavericks and where they are. 2-8 in their last 10. They've lost 3 in a row.
They're trying to roll the corpse of Anthony Davis back on the court. They sent him down the G League assignment to go get a workout in. I'm like, Nothing could possibly go wrong with 32-year-old Anthony Davis coming off a groin injury, being forced to play some heavy minutes and workload because the Mavs are so close to the roster minimum that they might actually have to forfeit a game. Nothing bad can come out of that in this season, surely.
Portland getting into the play-in because Dallas forfeits a game
cursed.
would be, I mean, that is such bad karma. Such bad karma.
Goodness gracious.
So Portland is 3 back, right? 13 games to go. I guess we're doing this right now. I don't know why I'm delaying it.
No,
We're
let's do
doing
it.
it. Okay, here we go. Now we're going to take the cruel path first.
Okay.
Okay. Memphis,
Definitely not.
Denver,
Nope.
Boston,
No.
Cleveland,
No.
Sacramento.
God, they're clawing. They're like.
I'm going to give them that one.
I'm not because it's on the road.
Okay. New York,
They're fighting.
Atlanta,
Yes.
Toronto,
Yes.
Chicago.
No.
No Chicago.
I think at that point in time, that game gets very important.
San Antone.
No.
No. At home? Wow.
And I think at that point in time, that game gets very important.
Well, okay.
Those two teams, the
San
Chicago
Antonio,
Bulls and the San
Utah.
Antonio Spurs, the Bulls are pushing for they are pushing for the plan. They are.
Did they not have their first round pick?
They don't care.
That is wild. Portland has a better record than Chicago right now.
Welcome to the Eastern Conference.
Actually, if you look, so here we go.
The East is nasty, dude.
This is the 9-10 matchup in the East in your upper right-hand corner. That is Chicago and Miami, both at 29 and 39.
Both behind the Blazers are the
Ooh-wee.
9-10.
Wow, and look at the 7-8.
Yeah.
My God.
Not great, Bob.
This is supposed to be kind of fun down here at the bottom half of the East. This is
Well, I
ugly.
mean, Orlando got decimated by injuries, and so did the Hawks.
Yeah.
So you lose Paolo and Franz for basically each a quarter of the season. Jalen Suggs is out for the season. The Hawks lose Jalen Johnson, who was very good, and all of a sudden you become a Trae Young team again. And well, we've seen kind of the extent of what that is.
It's just wild if you go back to the West, though, and think about the Kings, Mavericks, Suns, and Blazers. Like, none of those teams, and look, this has been a really good season.
They're not good. But
None of those teams should be in the playoffs.
No.
Like, I love my Blazers.
Yeah.
I hope they make it and defy the odds. All of that pretense. But, like, the gap between the Timberwolves.
The Blazers are what? They swept the Magic. They split the series with the Heat.
Yeah.
And they split this. No, they've only played the Hawks once, and they beat them. So in between those three teams, they've lost twice, and they're 3-2.
Yeah. I mean, they're going to win the season series with the Kings. They swept the Bucks. Like, they have beaten some teams
Yeah.
here and there. It is just comical what's happening at the back half of both of these
Yeah, no.
conferences right
I mean,
now.
well, the West is just better. Like, and
Well, of
that's-
course.
But even at the bottom, it's better.
At the bottom, it's better, but once you get below 8, it gets a little hinky.
I think I mean, you're seeing it. Like,
Well, when
those-
you're comparing the two, sure, but I think a month ago we thought the back half of the West would be a little bit more competitive.
yes and no. My pushback to that is
I mean,
like,
Danny, for Phoenix to be as bad as
well,
they
no,
are.
I'm not arguing that, but
Okay.
they also play in the West where teams are
Yeah,
better and they're
sure.
playing more games. Like the East is playing against the also bad East.
Sure.
And that's where I look at this. I may or may not have poked a hornet's nest with a tweet about the Heat the other night, and like I'm just like, what are you doing? You play in the East.
Danny, you cover yourself in honey and you whack that hornet's nest when it's the Miami Heat. Are you kidding me? You use Miami Heat hashtags when you do that stuff.
Maybe it wasn't a Heat hashtag. It was just hashtag culture
All right.
because theirs doesn't exist.
Basketball fans, guess what? The game's over. The
Thank
night
God.
is the night just getting started? For some it is. Well, Danny, it's St. Patrick's Day. Of course the night's getting started.
My culture.
But you have, look, you got a big day at work, but you want to keep those good vibes going.
true.
What is someone to do? Well, you reach for a Best Day Brewing.
Absolutely.
Huh? That's what you do to keep those good vibes going. It is the fastest growing non-alcoholic craft beer brand. It's the ultimate post-game play. We get to enjoy a great beer without worrying about tomorrow, Tuesday, Schmooze Day. Let's face it, celebrating tonight's win doesn't need alcohol. Fans, make every day your best day. Find your nearest Best Day Brewing retailer at bestdaybrewing.com. Danny, if you'll indulge me, let's go to the Blazer
go.
box for a brief Trend BA. We're going to do a little basketball broadcasting roundup.
Yeah.
Okay? Reg is leaving TNT. NBC got him.
Yeah.
The Peacock. So I just wanted to do a roundup of where we are right now, because next year, NBC,
The switch occurs.
Amazon are going to be in the mix. Okay? So here's who NBA...
For the better.
For the better. NBA and NBC right now, Tirico is the lead play-by-play.
He's not a basketball guy to me.
Tirico is fine. He's excellent at golf.
He's golf and football.
Excellent at golf.
That's where he lives.
Very good at football. Basketball is...
This is
I get it. Tirico is... This is like the Bob Costas, you are the emeritus broadcaster of our network. This is why you're doing this.
He's a Syracuse guy, isn't he?
He is.
Yeah, I think that plays
the lineage.
Yeah.
But second in command at play-by-play, Noah Eagle.
He's the rising nepotism superstar, but...
Right. But he's like Jack Quaid. He's a Nepo baby we all love.
But not only that, sometimes nepotism gets it right. Like every now and then, like... If you look,
that's your takeaway from the show.
Look, I'm just saying, every now and then, nepotism works out. Okay, look, I've talked to Noah about this stuff, and he's great, and I'm incredibly jealous of how good he is at his job.
Did you have him on the radio show?
Yeah,
nice.
Yeah,
that's
he's
fun.
He's just a dude, and he's like, when we had him on, he was like, I'm supposed to start my prep on Monday after the weekend's games of football. Sometimes it's Tuesday, sometimes it's Wednesday, it's just, that's life. And it's like, he's just a normal kid. I say kid because he's like 27, 28. He's still incredibly young, but he's so good at his job.
He's very talented.
And that's the thing is like,
if you just heard him call a game and had no idea what his name is, you would think, damn, this guy's pretty good.
And you find out he's under 30, and you're like, well, this guy's really good.
He announced all the USA basketball games.
Yeah, and he's been the voice of NBC football. Like, he is going to be the face and voice of NBC sports for as long as he wants.
As long as he wants.
Like,
until a tech company offers him more money, he will be the voice.
He is incredible.
Of NBC sports.
And that is a great hire. He should, look, Tirico, the whole emeritus thing, it's fine. Make Noah Eagle the brand of your franchise going forward.
Well, I get it. I would argue Nance is not a great basketball guy, but he is the CBS guy.
Yeah.
He's great at football, great at golf, but that's what happens with these companies. Okay, so Reggie is with Tirico.
Yeah.
And then you have Jamal Crawford with Noah Eagle.
Well, he's been also filling in on the Knicks broadcast on the road. When the Knicks were here, it was a little weird. I see Jamal Crawford. I'm like, I haven't seen Jamal in this building since he led a mutiny. It's just like, it's weird to see you here. And look, I love Jamal. Great guy. He's Northwest guy, Seattle guy. I see him at a bunch of events and stuff like that. But it was weird to see him back in the Blazers building.
Sure.
It was like,
Mello, studio analyst for NBC. That's Carmelo Anthony of the Portland Trail Blazers.
The great thing about that is they went to the single shot is that my eyes rolled out of the back of my head.
Then Amazon, Ian Eagle is the lead play-by-play over there. Kevin Harlan is in talks. That must mean his agent's just trying to get a couple more zeros tacked onto that, because Harlan is a madman. I think he's the most underrated play-by-play guy we've had in the last 30 years.
I love it. Anytime
Fabulous.
a cat gets loose on the field, Kevin Harlan is whatever crazy event
you want him calling.
You want him on the call.
And then you have Taylor Rooks in studio and Dirk and Blake Griffin as studio analysts.
Those two guys, I think, are going to be
I love that combo.
Phenomenal. Look, Blake Griffin's a big goon, but he's hilarious, and Dirk is very thoughtful, but also like the whole thing about Dirk being married to a black woman and him being invited to the cookout and like coming to games with the to-go plate. Like, there's a wholesomeness, and like everybody loves Dirk. And I think there's something about that with like Shaq and Charles. Like, you can say what you want about him. Everybody loves him.
Yeah.
And like Dirk kind of brings that same level, while Blake gets to kind of just be the giggles.
Well, I feel like Blake's kind of not been in the public eye for the last 5 or 6 years. It's very interesting to see how he's going to make this sort of splashy return on Amazon.
And I think both those companies are both looking at least one more potential hire. Sure. And I'm interested in, like, I know people don't like Reggie for this reason or that. The one thing I love about Reggie Miller, he loves basketball.
He does, man.
He doesn't ever poop on the game. Like, he's like, it's all love with Reggie.
I turned on Reg. I love
I'm so
Reggie's
sick
call.
and tired of everybody complaining about what games are and aren't, and the Kendrick Perkins of it all. Give me Reggie over those kind of guys.
Because it's genuine. It's not a facade. They're not doing it for a bit. Reg loves this.
He loves the game, man, through and through, even if he is a dirty Bruin.
Okay.
His sister was smarter.
That is Cheryl. That is the broadcasting roundup. The Blazers, they continue, Dan. They continue. It gets a lot harder. And
well, it mathematically has to get harder because they just played the worst team in basketball.
Sure. So let's throw that aside and say if you were looking at the median NBA basketball team this season, it would be hard against that.
Yeah.
Because you have 4 teams that are, I won't say all of them are fighting for position, but Memphis and Denver are in a dogfight right now.
Those are the two that are like,
Absolute
I think those are
positioning.
absolutely no way are you getting less than a best effort.
Because the middle of the West,
2 through 7 is just a bloodbath.
Right now, Denver and Memphis are 3-4. They're separated by a half game. And
Denver's going to win a game against the Warriors tonight. I think it went final.
Did it go final?
You know, let me try to do this on air.
You can do it. Come on, Dan.
They beat the Warriors without
there it is.
Jokic or Murray. 114-105.
Wow.
Yeah, Jokic and Murray both got the night off, and they needed it, and they were banged up. So they get a win on a night that the Grizzlies lose to the Kings, a game the Kings had to have. And so now all of a sudden you're just seeing the juxtaposition of the standings. The Lakers get a game against the Spurs, but, you know, it's the Spurs that don't have anyone. There's no Wemby, there's no Fox. But they're trying to buy Braun as much time as they can to, you know, put himself in the chamber, as it were, so he could be ready for the playoffs. But they were the 2 seed a week ago, and they've, you know, fallen all the way back to 6 and then back up to 3. It's like those teams are fighting. In the East, Boston and Cleveland are probably going to do what they did when the Blazers won this last road trip, which was strategically sit a few guys.
Which is why you hesitated when we went through the schedule with those teams.
But I also
particularly with Boston.
Well, Boston sat everyone and still beat the brakes off the Blazers. I don't think you're going to see Peyton Pritchard go for 40+ or Derek White go for 40+, but
or make 9 threes each.
Yeah, a lot of points.
Bit of an anomaly.
But you know they gave Cleveland all they can handle. And look, they didn't have Donovan Mitchell. They did have Darius Garland. They did have Evan Mobley. They did have DeAndre Hunter. They did have Jared. And
DeAndre Ayton isn't Donovan Mitchell, but I think we have to remind ourselves how valuable DeAndre Ayton was.
Not Ayton, Hunter.
No. DeAndre Ayton.
Oh, okay.
You're
for the Blazers. Okay,
yes,
not playing.
100%. Because there's this notion that, all right, well, all of these really good players are resting against Portland. Well, DeAndre Ayton hasn't played for a while. He was a big part of the winning streak Portland had.
Yes.
So this notion that it doesn't really matter that DA's not in there. Yeah,
it's a lot of production.
It's a lot of reliable production.
We haven't talked about Cleveland really much tonight. DC had a nice box score night in the sense of overall production.
11 and 13.
He left a lot of meat on that bone.
Dunk basketball.
Yeah, I had
Be big and strong.
I had a fan yell to me, "Can you fine him every time he doesn't dunk it?" I'm like, I can't. I mean, the teammate.
Somebody should.
But yeah, no, there was some meat left on the bone around the rim, but also on the glass. And you know, I'm clinging to get to the point where if he gets his big paw on the ball, it's his.
Yeah.
There's probably 3-4 tonight on both ends where you're just like, DC, you got to come up with that ball, big fella. Like you're the big bully at school. Like push the kid down, take his ball, and go away.
And it is tough because there's so many times where he does volleyball it to somebody else. Mm-hmm. He kind of gets the rebound assist situation.
I'm totally okay with him doing the tip
what you're saying,
spot.
But there's opportunities for him to grab the basketball and just slam it on a guy who's 6'8", and he just doesn't. And it's very frustrating when he has the ball up here and he goes for a lay-in.
Or he does
scare some people.
He lets the shot go right here.
Yeah.
It's like, brother, if you extend your arms out of the way, you need 2 more inches to put the ball in the hoop.
Yes.
I think it's a 9. If I remember right, I think he has a 9-foot 9-inch standing reach.
He can jump an inch.
Look, my man doesn't have big time bunnies, but
that should be enough to get it done.
And look, he's a rookie. He's got plenty of things to work on. He's still incredibly young. But like again, in the same way of Shaden, I'm not sitting here saying he's bad or I don't like him or any of those things. I expect more from him because I think he can do more with it. And that's the thing is, we're talking about this on nights where Donovan Clingan had 11, 13, and 7 offensive rebounds. Like I need more from you. You know, yeah. It's like, but that's because he's capable. It's very clear that he's capable of more. The same thing with Shaden Sharp. Very clear that you're capable of more.
And we've seen it. We've seen it with enough frequency where we know what you're capable of, and now we're nitpicking. And nitpicking on this team is a very good place to be.
Yes, because it's not like, man, I wish he could do this. Like, I've seen you do it. But that's, again, we started the show talking about the difference in levels to players and where they are in their career and that development arc. It's about growth.
Memphis is coming to town. They almost ruined the franchise earlier this year, Dan. So what can we expect from the Grizzles? How's this team looking right now?
I want to see John Morant
How's the
play
injury
some
health?
freaking basketball.
Is he going to play?
Because I haven't seen him play live in like 3 years.
Is Wednesday the day?
God, I hope so.
Okay.
Desmond Bane went for 40 and they still lost.
Yeesh.
Yeah, he ended up with 44.
I always want to look at Memphis as a team that, like, hey, this is a fun dark horse in the West. Until I see him do it,
Yeah.
I can't really believe it.
No.
Like, everything's there.
I mean, they're the deepest
Everything's
team in the league.
there,
Like,
right.
people say Boston or maybe Cleveland. Like, you've got guys like Vince Williams Jr., like Gigi Jackson still isn't back and playing it. Like, Santi Aldama is just a hooper. And it's just like you start looking like Jake LaRavia and you just kind of go down the list. You're like, why do they have so many good players? It's just, but selfishly, I just want to watch John Morant play in person because I've been robbed of that for the last couple of years because he can't keep his hands off guns.
And we are starting to get in a position. It's not funny. We are starting to get in a position where we're running out of basketball games.
Yeah.
We only got 13 of these left.
We do get a matchup though between Edie and Klingon. So the two absolute mountain humans.
We better get that.
Oh yeah. Well, Edie's healthy right now. Tonight he was healthy. He was good. 11, 12 points, 8 boards, 4 blocks.
I know we want to lose in Tankathon and 10th seed and all these things. I want to see Portland win one of these 4 games. I want to see them beat a high-quality opponent they're not supposed to beat.
You want to get burned at the stake.
It's not that I want to get burned at the stake, Dan, but
You do.
that New York game, they couldn't come away with it. The Cleveland game, they couldn't come away with it.
Look, I'm not
There's
gonna
these
begrudge
games
you.
against
Wanna
these
feel a little pain?
top-tier teams. I want to feel pain so good, Danny. Feels so good to beat a good team.
You usually got to pay extra for that.
You don't want to feel that?
Nah, that's right.
All right, I'm glad the show's almost over. Marang's starting to lose it. Thank you so much for tuning in tonight to this edition of Rip City Wrap Up. Tyree, thankful we'll be back here on Wednesday to keep the peace. Memphis is coming to town. It should be a fun basketball game. Blazers win 2 in a row. They're 3 back at the 10th seed right now. We'll see where we sit a couple of days
1 game back from
now.
the 8th seed in the draft lottery. Closer to that.
Razor thin margin,
to that.
folks. Here we are. We're in purgatory. Which way is it going to go?
Oh, don't use the P word.
Tune in Wednesday to find out limbo. We're in limbo. Better. Thank you for tuning in. Thank you for being here, Danny
thank
Marang.
you, Joe.
Appreciate your punctuality. We love you all so much.
Bye.